for different applications, primarily uh, to the environment and the biological applications. And at the end, I will also try to talk a little bit about uh, the metals that uptake during the plant growth, how they can be disposed or how they can be recovered. At the same time, we can synthesize some kind of fuels that we are going to do it. So let me just share you the content of today's lecture. Just give me a minute. So I hope you are able to see the presentation, right? The PPT.
Yes, sir. We can able to see your presentation.
Okay, fine. So yeah, so in the previous session itself, as I've already introduced myself, so I'm not going to go more in detail. But anyway, so I'll just have a brief introduction of myself. Myself, Dr. Shivmohan Reddy. I'm working as an associate professor in the Department of Chemical Engineering, IIT Roorkee, and it's my pleasure to interact with you people and to share the knowledge that I have gained over the years for the synthesis of novel materials for industrial applications. Now, as a part of this faculty development program, for this today's session, I will be talking about nanobiocomposites for environment and biological applications. So as I've already said, in the previous lecture also, we have talked more about the biomass. Okay. So in the today's lecture, we will see how these biomass or the very different sources of biomass that we have can be applied or can be implemented to synthesize the variety of nanoparticles that will be required or that find applications in environmental and the biological applications. Now, the question that comes to everyone's mind is, yesterday you have given a different approach for the biomass degradation and for biomass where you are burning or you are trying to gasify the things, or you apply the conversion technologies like pyrolysis, gasification, and hydrothermal treatment, where you are trying to generate hydrogen gas, and at the same time you are also synthesizing the nanometal carbon hybrids, right? So that was a different approach. See, where you want to decompose or degrade the things, there you require uh, an additional input energy for the initial energy, where you can extract the bio extract the energy from your biomass. But in the today's class, we will see how the molecules or the components that are present in the biomass will be helpful for the reduction, or it will be helpful for the synthesis of nanoparticles. Now, as we are all aware that the biomass is nothing but, as I think in the previous lecture I have given you the structure of various components that are present in the biomass, right? So it is primarily comprises of cellulose, hemicellulose, lignin, and a little bit of extractive content. So now cellulose has nothing but the biopolymer of sugar, C6 sugars, and hemicellulose is the biopolymer for C5 sugars, and lignin is the binding structure or the phenolic structure or the cage-like structure which bind these biopolymers, like sugar polymers inside your plant cell, right? So that's what we have seen in the previous lab. Now, as you see that if you look out at the structure, and if you people have had a if you had remembered the structure that I have given for each of these things, so if you might see, there are different functional groups that are associated to each content of your biomass. That's, for example, cellulose, you have OH groups. So you have CC bond groups, right? So you have different kinds of functional groups that are attached to the original biomass, that whatever the components that are present in your biomass. Now, depending upon the kind of variety of the functional groups that are associated to a particular biomass, these biomass have a certain potential to act as a reducing agents and participate in some of the reactions. Okay, so that's where we are taking out, it's explore the potential of the biomass to implement them as an effective material to synthesize the nanoparticles. Okay, So as we have already discussed in the previous session, where the variety of what the variety of sources for the generation of biomass, right? So that might come from the sewage or from the municipal solid waste, that might come from the agricultural residues, come from the biomass comes from the forest scraps and other residues, industrial residues and animal residues, right? So now every biomass has its own characteristics or its own kind of potential to reduce the metal ions to its active nanometal forms. So that depends upon the kind of functional groups that are associated with it, the cellulosic content and hemicellulosic content, and not only that, that the unsaturated bonds that are associated with the biomass. So now because what happens whenever you have a reduction reactions, you need to provide the electrons or the electron cloud for the positive ions or the cations of your metal. So these electrons, when it comes in contact with the cations of the metal cations, so these gets reduced and then you are able to get the active forms of your nanometals, right? So how these depending upon the functional groups or depending upon the electron cloud that is associated to the biomass, so you would be able to synthesize the variety of nanoparticles for the different metal sources or the different metallics that you want to synthesize, okay, with the peculiar properties. Okay, so as we have already discussed in the previous lecture only, that why we are choosing the biomass as a potential reducing agents. So these are abundantly cheaply available that you are going to generate, and as long as the biotic life is going to exist, then you see that there is a huge generation or huge quantities of biomass is going to be generated across the globe. So the only thing is we need to segregate. If you want to have a specific kind of application, we need to segregate this biomass. If you don't require those things, then you can just use those things as a whole kind of source for your electron flow to reduce the cations of your metal cations into active metallic forms. So as I've already said that the biomass primarily comprises of three components, that is cellulose, hemicellulose and lignin content, and these contents will be varying in a typical percentages of 30 to 45% comprises of mostly cellulose, and hemicellulose comprises of 20 to 30%, and lignin comprises of 20%. So on a overall, if you look at any of the lignocellulosic biomass, you see that nearly 75% comprises of your sugar components, or that sugar polymers. I would say that is nothing but C6 and C5 sugars molecules, that biopolymers that you have. So those have the those will be the potential molecules, or those have the ability to reduce the metal ions. As we have already said, so if I am using the biomass for some kind of purpose, so still we are not generating any kind of emissions, because whatever the emissions that it is going to be generated during the burning or anything, so it is going to be absorbed by the plants. So we convey that the biomass is going to be a carbon neutral source, right? So this is what we have discussed in the previous lectures, just to give you the overview. What is the biomass, what are the different contents, and now how we are looking its perspective to implement it as a material synthesis reducing agent. Okay, so in the previous lecture we have used it as a potential energy source. Now in the today's lecture we will be looking at how these biomass can be implemented for your as a potential plant reducers that can be implemented in material synthesis. Okay, so we have to start with the nano size biomaterials. Now, before going more in detail about the nano size particles, right? So the first and foremost thing that comes into everyone's mind is what would be the size range, right? So you have a variety of particles that are going to be there, or that we usually encounter during our day-to-day applications also. But you still see, can I call any material of this particular range, or can I call a particular size range or a particular size of any material, can I call it as a nanomaterial or not? So scientists have defined the particular size range for the nanoparticles Now, particles having the dimensions in the size range of 1 to 100 nanometer. So whosoever particle size is less than 100 nanometer, then only we call it as a nanoparticle, right? Or the nanomaterial or the nanometal, that if it is a metal, then we call it as a nanometal. So now anything which is not less than 100 nanometer, or if any material is greater than 100 nanometer, so we are not going to call it as a nanometer particle. Okay, so we need to make sure whenever you synthesize, if you want to synthesize a nanoparticle, we have a constraint, that size constraint, that the size of your nanomaterial should be less than 100 nanometer. So you can call it that is nanomaterial, and you have a specific kind of applications when you synthesize this particular size range of particles. Now, if you look out at the any material or the properties that you see, the molecular properties that we see for a particular kind of material is going to vary with the size of your material. Okay, for example, the bulk properties of any material might not be the same with that of the molecular properties of that particular material. Like, for example, metals itself, if you have a bulk material, so it is going to have a different kind of physical and chemical properties. But when you have it is in the nanometer size, it is going to have a very high kind of conductivities, electronic density. So you can apply it for variety of your different applications, depending upon the properties, or depending upon the tuning of your thermophysical properties that exist for a size, for a particular size range of materials. Okay. Now, the second question that comes to everyone's mind is like, yes, we know now it is the nanoparticle. Now, the second thing that you need to know is what are the different methods that you have for the synthesis of nanomaterials. So there are variety of methods that has come into the picture for the synthesis of nanomaterials. One such method is like, your thermal treatments. I hope those people who are working on the catalysis might be aware of this thermal treatment, right? So when you want to synthesize any of your nano catalyst, how you people are synthesizing? Can anyone let me know? Does anyone works on the synthesis of catalyst? If I want to synthesize a nano catalyst, how you are going to synthesize a nano catalyst? For example, if I want to synthesize a nickel nano catalyst, can anyone let me know how you people are able to do that? I hope some people are working on the synthesis of nano catalyst, right? Can anyone reply? Okay, no problem. So what we usually do is when you go for a thermal treatment, so what we do is we usually take a precursor, right? And then we try to put it either in the nitrogen environment or in the hydrogen environment. And then you start heating it in a muffle furnace, right? So when you do these things, whatever the gaseous components that are there, those gets be removed. And then with the kind of high thermal environment or the energy that is going to be there, it provides the electron cloud, that is the electron density that is required for the metal cations that exist in your surrounding in your reducing environment, and then that metal cations gets reduced to active nanometals. This is how typically you might be doing it in terms of for synthesis of nano materials, right? So if you might have seen, you might be using this sol gel methods, right? So you might be using that impregnation methods where you first impregnate. Even in the yesterday also, I have given you the same information, right? Where we take the precursor and you support that precursor, mix that precursor with your support, then stir it for a few hours, and then after stirring, then you have to dry it for a few hours. After drying, then you are going to calcine your sample. Depending upon the calcination of your calcination temperatures, your size material is going to be changed, or your reduction of your material is going to be changed. So this is what typically we usually do it for thermochemical or thermochemical route for the synthesis of nanomaterials, right? So you just burn it in the reducing environment, and then you would be able to or in a nitrogen environment or in the reducing environment, then you would be able to get the active forms of your active forms of your metallics, which is in the nanometer size range for the thermal treatment. Now, the second process that we usually implement for the synthesis of nanoparticles is chemical synthesis, where you apply the reducing agents like sodium borohydrate. Right. So what happens is another method that we popularly use, or that is well practiced in any of our nanoparticle synthesis, is you take the precursor in a solvent, and then you take the sodium borohydrate, that is NaBH4, and then you try to slowly add this reducing agent step by step, okay, using the burette. And then if you are going to do it, so now whatever the sodium borohydrate that you are adding to your metal precursor, if you are maintaining at some particular temperature and pressure, it provides the hydrogen molecules. So now hydrogen acts as a reducing agent to reduce your metal cations into its active nanometals, right? So this is another kind of nanoparticle synthesis, that is, we call it as a chemical synthesis. Okay, so the first one is your thermal synthesis, the second one is your chemical synthesis. Now the third one that we have come across is your biological synthesis. So in the biological synthesis, what happens is you either involve the microorganisms to take up these, or to provide the reducing environment, or to provide the electrons that is essential for the metal cations to get reduced. Okay, or the other reducing source will be the plant source, or its plant intermediates or plant metabolites, is another route where we call where we use the plant metabolites. Like, for example, if you take any of your plant, for example, I would say you have a lime. Okay, so what people usually do is they'll make this lime powder, dry it, make the lime powder, and then they will try to extract the components for a particular period of time, maybe for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or 25 minutes. And then whatever the extract that they are going to do it from your plant or plant metabolites, so this extract acts as a reducing agent, and then we are going to add this extracted plant or the extracted solution towards your aqueous solution or metal solution. That is, whenever you are dissolving the precursors like metal salts into your into the water, and then you are going to step by step you are going to add it, and then you are going to synthesize the nanomaterials. These are the three routes that are available for the synthesis of nanomaterials. Now the question that comes is, fine, so if you have these three routes now, sir, why you are, what is the need for us to go for only thermal environment, or for hydrogen environment, for chemical synthesis, or when should I go for a biological synthesis? Now that is very good. That is a very good question that we need to understand ourselves. Now, for example, if I want to synthesize some kind of metallic particles, right? So if depending upon the kind of application that I have to choose it, I should make sure, for example, if I'm looking out for any kind of reaction, for example, simple hydrolysis reaction or hydrogenation reaction itself that we want to do it. So these hydrogenation reactions are usually performed at very high temperatures, right? Okay. So when you want to perform these high temperatures, so we need to make sure that your catalyst or the synthesized metal is going to be stable in a particular environment that we are going to operate, right? So that's what we do is, one is depending upon the kind of application that you choose. Now the second thing that you need to understand is its stability, right? So now whenever you are performing the reaction, so you need to see that the material, that the nanomaterial that you have synthesized, that has to be in its active form itself for a number of cycles that you want to do it, right? So that's where you have to decide yourself depending upon the particular kind of applications. If you have high temperature applications, then you need to go for a thermal route, where you can make sure that the synthesized nanomaterial is going to be already has been has undergone into that temperature environment. So then it is able to withstand the conditions that you are providing during the reaction. So that is first condition that you need to understand where you want to apply. Now, the second thing that you need to is its stabilizing agent. So now, for example, if you look out at any of the chemical synthesis routes, now what happens if when you are adding the reducing agent like sodium borohydride? Okay, fine. Now you have kind of nanomaterial has been formed. Now, as soon as the nanometal is formed, it is going to be highly reactive because of its active metallic form, right? So now, whenever you are putting it into the solution, and moreover, because of the Brownian motion and also high reactivity of the metals, these interact with each other and form a big agglomerates, and the size that you are looking out for cannot be attained unless and until you have a stabilizing agents. So whenever you are implementing any synthesis of any of your nanomaterials, we need to make sure that it has to have some kind of stabilizing agent so that you can tune the size range of your particles that you want to synthesize. So that is the second key part that you need to know. So whenever you want to look out for the synthesis of any of your materials, so you make sure that you need to add some kind of stabilizing agents so that it is going to have the desired size range of your particles, right? Now, the chemical synthesis requires these kind of additional, and moreover, when you talk about sodium borohydride, so sodium borohydride is an expensive chemical because it involves the hydrogen. Because whenever you see the hydrogen, so hydrogen, what would be the source of hydrogen? It will be from the natural gas or from any of the fossil fuel sources itself, right? You cannot get it from any other, hydrogen is not cheaply available in the environment. So whatever the synthesis of hydrogen that you are producing it from the fossil fuels or from the renewable source, so those kind of that hydrogen is going to be converted into sodium borohydride. So that's the reason why we see this sodium borohydride is going to be little bit expensive. So that also in cost wise it is going to be eliminated, or like it may not be found in pictures. But the advantage of these two things, that the thermal route and the chemical route that we are talking about, since your reducing agent have a very specific kind of properties or very known properties, you can have a very narrow size range of your particles can be synthesized using this thermal and your chemical synthesis. Now, as soon as you come into the biological part, so biological part doesn't require any of your chemical agents, doesn't require any of your stabilizing agents also. So what happens is you take the biological molecule. So now whenever you are extracting something, for example, the one which I'm talking about, the microorganisms itself. Okay. So if you have any kind of microorganism, so each organism is going to be having a peculiar kind of characteristics, and they have their own ability to reduce the metals, right? So whenever you are going to do this part, the stability is going to be a big issue. Okay. And the second thing is your rate of reaction of reduction, or the rate of reduction is going to be very, very slow. So that's the reason for all the biological parts that you want to require, okay, or the biological synthesis that you see, that it takes almost all hours for you to synthesize the nanoparticles. But whereas if you look at both the chemical and thermal routes, so it usually requires very less times in comparison with that of the biological routes that you are going to have. Okay. Now another problem that we usually encounter with the biological synthesis is the size range that I have already mentioned to you. And the second thing is, if it is put in the stabilizing agent, is also going to be a key factor. But the plant metabolites to some extent act simultaneously both as a stabilizing agent and also the reducing agents, thereby eliminates the addition of new chemicals or the toxic chemicals that is required for you for the synthesis of narrow size range of the particles. Now, whatever the synthesis routes that you have, so usually the biological routes are considered as a green chemistry or the green synthesis of nanoparticles, because we are going to use the biological materials rather than the hazardous chemicals or the high temperature one, okay, for the design and manufacture of your chemical, for the design and manufacture of the various nanoparticles that it is going to be there. Okay, so now as I've already said, for the research or even for the large scale applications that we want to look out for, so the biological route is going to be a much more green route, where you can directly take up or directly synthesize the nanoparticles of your size range that you are looking out for. Okay, so before going more in detail about the nanoparticle synthesis, one has to understand how this nanoparticle can be synthesized. So there are two types of approaches that are usually known for the synthesis of nanoparticles. So one is your top to bottom approach, and other is your bottom to top approach. Now in the top to bottom approach that you have, so you have a bulk material, you synthesize it to the powdered form, okay, and then from the powdered form you are going to reduce by, this is all by mechanical means, like whatever the unit operations that we are involving in the chemical process industries, so like ball mills, okay, or any of your drying equipments that you are going to use. So these kind of equipments is going to be useful for you, or usually implemented in this top to bottom approach, where you are going to be synthesize your nanomaterial from your bulk material. That means you have a bulk material, you reduce it by kind of crushing, grinding, or kind of milling, okay, and furthermore it requires large execution time. That means it requires more time for you to get from the bulk material to its nano-sized particle that you are going to. Okay, now the second approach that you have is from bottom to top approach. For example, you are synthesizing from the atoms, then form nuclei, and then you have a nanoparticle for that. Now, as I've already told you just a few minutes back, we have been discussing about how this nanoparticle can be synthesized, right? So there are different routes that we have already discussed about. Now, during the methods like thermal method, or like chemical synthesis method, biological routes, so what happens, you have a preliminary reaction where gets undergoes the reduction reactions. So now once it undergoes reactions, then it forms the atoms or molecules. These molecules combine to form a big nuclei, and then it forms the nanoparticle, right? Bottom to top approach, where you have the reactions involved, and then where your first molecules or atoms, then you will go for the synthesis, gets agglomerated, and then it forms a nanoparticle of thing that we are looking out for. Now, if you look out at the times that we are talking about, this bottom to top approach usually requires to the top to bottom approach, right? Because that is going to be involved. Okay, so as so in the physical, chemical, and green methods that that we have already talked about, in the physical method, so where we are synthesizing it at high temperatures, and if you look at, we need to supply the energy over there, and moreover, you, if you look out at many of the synthesis of nanocatalysts that we are talking about, so those synthesized are calcined for more than 4 to 5 hours. It takes 4 to 5 hours for your material or the nanomaterial or want to apply for a particular type of reactions to get reduced in the calcine. So it requires large time, okay, and of energy for your physical method that you are talking about. So the second method, your chemical method, where though it is very simple, but it is but the problem over here is you need to implement the reducing and the stabilizing agents, like stabilizing agents that we usually is polymers, that polymers are also going to be implemented, so which is very difficult for you to implement it for variety of applications. So that's the reason why chemical routes are also not preferred to a greater extent. However, the third method that we are talking about, the biological method or the green route method that we are going, it is easy, efficient, eco-friendly. You are not generating any of the byproducts or any of toxic products that you are going to use it, and it doesn't require any kind of energy that you are looking out for, because you don't require high temperatures or any large quantities of the reducing agent that it is going to be used in, unlike in other methods like physical and chemical method. Okay, so as we have already said, so okay, so in the today's lecture, so I'll be discussing about this green route or the green synthesis of the nanoparticles, where we are using the plant metabolites or the actual plant extracts that we are talking about. Now, the plant sources have a variety of phytoconsistents, that is, which have different functional groups that I was talking about. You have phenolic groups, so which means you have its C double bond over there. You have tannins, you have alkaloids, you have flavonoids, you have acids. Okay, these are all weak acids, weak bases, and these are these can act as a potential reducing agents for your, or provides the potential electron crowd that is essential for your metal cations to interact with the electrons, and thereby it gets reduced to the active forms of the metals. Okay, now these plant extracts can be acting as a good reducing agents. These are easily available, so you don't need to go anywhere. So you see across you itself, you find variety of plants. You take any plant, take its out its extract, mix it with any of the precursor, you find you can synthesize a nanoparticle. Okay, so it is cost effective, it is eco-friendly, and moreover, if I want to tune its size and shape, then you have to be very particular. Okay, then you have to maintain your conditions effectively. That means you need to mix it properly. Okay, so if you want to have it, the things, you need to maintain its temperatures to be almost all uniform. Now, as soon as your temperature is going to be changed, then your particle size is also going to be changed. So why it is going to be changed? Because whenever you are, because as I've already mentioned, so you are taking up the extract and you are mixing it in, or you are putting it, you are mixing it directly with your aqueous metal salts, right? So when you are doing this process, you know, if the temperature is going to be increased, whatever the particles that it is going to be formed in its active metallic forms, these, because of the Brownian motion of the molecules in the liquid phase, so these gets comes in contact, bombard with each other, collide with each other, and then forms a big clusters kind of things, and as a result you see that its size is going to be very much higher compared to the top of the other. Okay, see, as I hope you guys remember it, like, you know, when we are to how you can proceed for a particular kind of, how you can start a particular the reduction reaction. See, one thing that we are aware is that, like, you know, we have a metal cations, or we have the aqueous forms of the metals, and you have the reducing agent. Now the question is, see, if I have a reducing agent, like for example, I have extracted the things from the lime itself. I have a lime extract with me. I have an aqueous solution of, for example, iron solution, or I would say the nickel solution itself. Okay. Now, how should I start the reaction? Okay, so this is where our chemical engineering comes into the picture. One should be aware of how we can proceed to start for the reaction. So if I'm directly mixing these two things at a time, what happens? Yes, there occurs a reaction, but you won't be able to form the nanoparticles. Why? The reason is, as I've already said, you need to have some kind of stabilizing agent so that you can control the size range, right? So now let me just show you uh, the particle synthesis formation, then you will be able to understand the things. Now, as I've already told you that during the synthesis of nanoparticles, okay, so there is first part that you are going to have is the reduction reaction, and then followed by the nucleation. Once you get this nucleation, then it have a growth phase where all the active forms of the metals forms a big kind of cluster, and then whatever the biomolecules or the stabilizing molecules that you have, then those gets surrounded by this particular size of cluster of your active metal ions, and it forms a good particular size of your nanoparticle. This is how your nanoparticle synthesis, or this is how the nanoparticle is going to be formed. First is reduction, nucleation, growth, stabilization. Okay, so the last pass is called termination phase. Whatever the stabilization process that we get it. So after the stabilization process, that we see that we will get a particular size range of your nanoparticles. Now, if you see, this is how the reaction it is going to look out for. You have a bioreducing agents, you have the metal ions. So first phase that you are going to have is it provides the reducing agent that it is going to be there in the in the extract that we are talking about. In the extract that we are talking about, so these comes in contact with the metal cations present in your solution, provides the electron cloud, and then it gets reduced. So now these, see, you have active forms of your metal, and you have some kind of organic functional group attached to your metal, active forms of metal. Now these metals comes in contact during the growth phase and forms a particular size range of your particles, and then these organic bio components that you see, it forms a cluster like this, where it decides the particular size range of your nanoparticle that we are talking about. So first one is your reduction phase, followed by your nucleation and growth phase. Third one is your stabilization phase. Now, as I've already said, see, now if I want to promote, or if I want to have a very, very narrow size range particles, so what I will do is, instead of mixing this extract or the biomolecules that I'm talking about, then instead of mixing it directly, then what I will do is, I will take this extract as my base material, then I will be dropping this aqueous metal solution of particular concentration drop by drop. Now ask, what happens if I do that thing? If you have a metal cadence which I am going to drop it drop by drop, or if I am putting it in a high pool of electron environment, okay, so since my metal particles, for example, if a drop has, for example, only 10 cations, so whatever the electron cloud that is required initially, that is going to be provided by the thing, and it forms a particular size range of your particle. So that means you are slowly adding the metal cations to your reducing environment. That means you are providing the reduction, and the growth is going to be delayed. So as soon as the growth is going to be delayed, so now what happens? It is going to form a smaller particles, because you don't have much of your metal cations that you are looking out for in a particular drop. That's the reason why we go for a addition of B. I mean, if you look out at the reaction engineering over here, so this is where we need to apply our principles of basic principles of reaction engineering, where you are going to provide the metal cations into the reducing environment, and thereby you can control the size of your particle that you are synthesizing it. Okay, this is how we are going to do it in case of your, when you are using an extract. Okay, this is a two-step process. That means you first initially reduce the, or take out the components that are related, that can effectively promote the reduction reaction. We are taking it from the plant source using the mass transfer principles like extraction. You extract the quantities, the biomolecules that are present in your plant source or from your organism, and then use that extract which is rich in your reducing environment, or that is rich in your electrons, so that you can provide it towards your supply it to the active forms of your to the metal cations, right? So this is a two-step process. That means you have to first extract the plant material or the biomolecules from the plant, store it in a particular position, then you mix up the known quantity or the known concentration of your metal precursor, then you can add, you have to add the metal precursor step by step, so that you would be able to synthesize a specific size range of your nanoparticles. Now, to overcome this process, two-step process, we have developed a unique process, or not, I would say unique process. We have developed a single step process where we can synthesize the nanoparticles both in the solid phase and the liquid phase in a single step itself. So that's where I say it is a unique novel process. Now, whenever I'm talking about unique novel process, sir, then the question comes is how you are saying that how you can control the size range of your particles, right? Now, if you look out at, first let me explain you the procedure, then it will be easy for you to understand the things in detail. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do in my process, or what we have done in our research group is, so we have taken the biomass. We know that biomass have the different kind of contents, like cellulose, hemicellulose content, or lignin contents, and then we have characterized that contents that is present in your this thing. Instead of extracting the biomolecules in a first step, what we have done is we have just taken the raw solid biomass itself, and then we have mixed it with the slurry kind of thing, or we made a slurry of aqueous metal solution and the biomass. Okay, so in the first step that I have explained to you, where you have a metal extract that is which is rich in reducing environment. You have a biomolecule extracts which is rich in electronic environment, and then you are taking up the aqueous metal salt separately, and then you are adding it drop by drop, right? So when you are doing this thing, so your reactions are instantaneous, or your reactions are little bit high compared to what we are having. The reason is you have highly reduction environment, and then you have the aqueous metals which are you are going to. So you typically, it takes 10 to 15 minutes or 15 to 20 minutes for you to synthesize these nanoparticles if you go for a two-step method. Okay, now the same process that I am going to do it, I'm doing it in a single step. That is, I want to synthesize the nanoparticles both in the solid phase, and also at the same time I have to synthesize in the liquid phase. So now what I'm doing is, instead of going in the extraction process, I'm just making a slurry, and then I'm mixing it for a specific period of, for example, 2 hours. Okay, so for 120 minutes, I'm thoroughly studying the biomass with aqueous metal solution itself. Now, what happens during this process? 2 things might happen, right? So one is, irrespective of whatever the metals that we are going to add it. So like how I have explained you in the previous session also, that is an impregnation process that we are doing it. So these metals gets absorbed onto the surface of your biomass, and then with the kind of electron rich environment that biomass is providing, they form these metal complexes, and then it gets reduced at the surface, and then it stays at there on the surface of your biomass, and then you can use it as for your energy applications, or for environmental applications, or for biological applications. Now what happens, so this is what it happens in the form of slurry, right? So now once you have a slurry, then how you can get the solid and liquid phase particles? Now when you are mixing these things in the in its slurry form, some of the biomolecules get transferred from your solid phase to the liquid phase. Now since you have already have the metal cations that is present in your liquid phase, these metal cations that are already in the liquid phase get attached or get reduced with the kind of biomolecules that are present in the liquid phase. So 2 phenomena is going to happen simultaneously in this unique novel step process that we have developed. So one step is that I have explained you in the previous session, that is where you are metal cations is going to get reach onto your other. It's like simple adsorption phenomena. At the adsorption phenomena, where you have the biomass acts as a I would say it's a catalyst, and also as an adsorbent. So it takes up the metals from your liquid solution, some quantity of the metals, it's not entire part of the thing, and then these metals which are absorbed on the surface gets reduced on the surface itself, undergo the surface reaction, and then it sticks onto the surface of your things because of the biomolecules that are present on the in the biomass. So that means you are able to provide or synthesize the nanoparticles both in the solid phase and also in the liquid phase in a single step itself. Now, once you have synthesized these 2 things, then we have used the simple filtration method, the cloth filtration, and then we have removed the solid particles, dried it, and then we have further characterized this. So if you look out at these materials, so I would say, so this is what the synthesized biocomplex, nano biocomposite of our silver it is there. So if you look out, so I haven't done any of the grinding part. Okay, so once you see, I hope you guys are able to see the nano biocomposite that you are talking about. So this is the same biocomposite that you are looking out on the screen, Okay, that is a powdered form, but here it is a clustered form. So this you can use it for your any of your mixed operations, or your reducing or removing of any of your metals, or for your reactions. But these kind of clusters will be used for your packet bed reactions, or your packet bed columns. Okay, so that's the reason. I hope now you guys are able to see the kind of nano biocomposite. I hope you guys now feel excited to see this, though it is a simple material, but it is embedded with your the nano material that we have synthesized. So this is a cluster. Okay, you see on the surface of it you have a very small quantity of your silver that is being embedded on that. Okay, so this is the silver one, and I have another material also. I will show you that thing also over here to you people. So I will show you the iron-based particle that we have. Okay, so this was iron-based particle which has been embedded on the same biomass matrix, that is your lime powder that we are talking about now. So this is your lime biomass. So you see you have the iron that is being embedded on this, embedded into this nano biocomposite that you are talking about. Okay, so now you see, now depending upon the kind of metal that you are going to have, or the extent of your capability of the biomass to reduce the metals. Okay, so we can be able to synthesize the variety of nanomaterials, right? So one should be aware of the reduction potential of the metal ions that you are looking out for. And once you see that the biomass have that kind of certain reduction potential to reduce these metals cations into its active forms, so then you can be able to synthesize this active forms of active form of your nanometals using the biomass materials. Okay, so now I will start with our first result that we have studied. So we have synthesized this zero valent iron. Zero valent iron means, I hope you know that iron exists, iron is highly reactive, whether it is in its nano form or it's in bulk form. You know that iron quickly gets oxidized to FeO or Fe2O3, right? So now what we have done is we have taken the iron salt, okay, that is iron sulfate, we have taken it, and then we have used this iron sulfate as a precursor, and then we try to remove, or we try to reduce this Fe2 plus to Fe0. Fe0 means that active forms of metal. Okay, so for that, what we have done is we have done the same kind of impregnation method that we have discussed, that I have described to you in the previous class. What we have taken is we take the Mozambique peels that we have. We usually grind it, or we do the wet grinding. Once we grind this thing, then we add the known quantity of our precursor solution, typically in the orders of 0.001, that is 1 millimolarity, so that we would be able to synthesize the known very fine size range of your particles. Okay, so once you mix up these two things, so then there exists the reaction that it is going to happen. Once the reaction is done, then you are going to do the filtration process, separate your liquid and solid particles. So then once you separate the solid particles, you dry it, and then you characterize it for further applications. Now the liquid solution that we usually get, that also will be having the nanoparticles. So this we have developed a nano-based sanitizer, and which we are going to launch our product into the market in the next couple of months. So we have, based on this research study that we have developed, or the unique method that we have developed, we have filed a patent, and we have started synthesizing this nano aqueous based sanitizer that can be effectively applied for variety of your bacteria and viruses that we have encountered. So we were able to produce this sanitizer using the nano based liquid based solution that we have developed in our lab. So we will go much in detail about those things in the next few minutes. So this is what the typical impregnation method that we have followed. Now, once we have got this solid-based nanoparticle nanobio-composite, so just to further reconfirm whether we are going to have this nanomaterial based or not, or the nano zero valent iron or not, we have performed the XRD analysis. So now XRD will give you the crystallinity of the material that we have synthesized, or whatever the material that you are going to have. So you have the sharp intense peaks reflects the higher crystallinity of your material. But interestingly, if you look out at the XRD peak of both our washed one and the treated one, you see we don't have any peaks that are relevant to the metal, that is iron. So that's where we got really shocked over here. So we see that two peaks that are there between 10 to 25 degree for 2 theta value of between 15 degree and 25 degree. So these are corresponds to the cellulose crystalline peaks, but we couldn't be able to see any peak that is relevant to the iron metal. So that's where we really shocked. So what happened? So then we tried to repeat the experiments 2 to 3 times, but still we have got the same kind of spectrum for our treated sample, which conveys that there is no crystalline form of iron. So then when we have done the XPS analysis, FESEM analysis, TM analysis, there we found the iron. So that means iron is being embedded onto the biomass matrix, but however, it is not being in the crystalline form, but however, it is in the form of amorphous form. So we found, or we were able to synthesize the amorphous form of zero valent iron, which can be used for environmental applications. Okay, so this is the XRD profile, and we were able to see that the biomass that we have used, that is the Mosambik peel powder, was not able to synthesize the crystalline forms of iron. Yeah, so then we got this XPS spectra. So once we found this XPS spectra, then we were able to understand, okay, yes, now we know that, like, iron is being embedded onto the biomass matrix. Now we have to figure it out what is should be its oxidation state. Now we found, as I've already mentioned to you, that iron is highly reactive. It forms like core shell kind of nanoparticles. So where you see that the binding energies that are nearly 407 electron volt that you see over here. So this peak is relevant to your iron, zero valent iron, and another is your 420 peak that you are talking about, that we are going to talk about. So these two peak reflects that iron is present in its zero form, and at the same time you have another two peaks which reflects are the binding energies of 424 and 413. So which are indicate that iron exists in +2 form also. So as overall we were trying to able to synthesize the zero valent iron in combination with iron oxide nanoparticles. Okay. So then to further confirm, as we have said that, like, see the XRD profile, we are not able to get the confirmation from the XRD profile that it is going to be in its, that we are able to synthesize the iron nanoparticles. But from the XPS and FESEM EDX analysis, we were able to see that the iron, we were able to see two definite peaks or strong peaks where indicating the iron content over here on the surface of your Mosambik peels. So this is your initial raw phase of our Mosambik peels, and you see it is going to be very smooth. Now as soon as you are treating it, so you are able to reduce, or we are able to see that some kind of iron is going to be embedded onto the biomass matrix, and we were able to quantify the result also, and we found that the iron was in the loading of iron was found to be around 2.6 mole per gram per kg of your biomass that we are going to talk. Then we have also done to see, once you know your now we are confirming that, like, that we are able to synthesize the zero valent iron. Now once you have synthesized the zero valent iron, we need to be make sure that what is the particle size range. So because why the particle size range? Because the size of your particle is going to design or decides the molecular properties of your material that you are synthesized. Okay, and from the TEM analysis, that is transmission electron microscopy, we were able to synthesize the zero valent iron in the size range of 4 to 70 nanometer. So that means we have a very wide range of nanoparticles that you are going to have. Okay, so the reason why it might be wide range is because you are having very both core shell of nanoparticles of zero valent iron and also the iron oxide particles. So that's where you see that your size range is going to be very high in case of iron. Okay, so now yes, we have confirmed ourselves, yes, that from the characterization results that we have performed, we were able to see that, yes, we were able to reduce the iron into zero valent iron. Now, where you can find this kind of applications? Okay, so where you can use this zero valent iron. Now, if you look out at the chromium industry or in our leather plant effluent that we are talking about, the principal heavy metal that is usually found in your effluent streams is chromium. So chromium is
Mohammed, sir, a small interruption, sir. The slides are not moving, sir.
okay. So you are not able to see the slides.
No, sir.
I don't know. Okay, let me just reshare it one more time.
The first slide was there. I thought that you will be extending for previous class, sir.
How about now?
It is now it is visible, sir.
Now visible.
Just move downward, sir. Next slide.
Okay, just let me put in the slide share. Are you able to see the next slide?
No, sir. Same fixed 17 only it was there.
Okay, so I don't know why what is that happening. So let me just do it the whole entire screen. I think that is the best way to do it. I think in yesterday also we have done the same thing. So let me just share the entire screen. Okay, how about now?
Nothing was visible, sir.
How about now?
Nothing is visible, sir, right now. Even that slide also is not. I can't able to see.
Okay. How are you able to see the screen now?
Now 16th slide is there, sir.
Okay, so okay, are you able to see the next slides? 17
Next.
and
17. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so let me just show you the particle size range, then I think it will be easy.
Sir,
So,
if you don't mind, you just show the previous slides also, sir, because no students were able to see this, and there was many people called me.
oh, okay. Sorry. So, so I'll just quickly summarize the things what we have done it. So I have just explained you what is a nano size material. So I have given you the size range of the materials that we are going to synthesize, or what size range of particles are usually called as nanoparticles. And I have given you different routes through which you can be able to synthesize the nanoparticles. One will be top-down approach, and other is bottom-top approach. And the different routes that we are going to usually do is thermal routes, chemical routes, and the green method routes that we have that can be implemented to reduce your bio nanomaterials, or the active forms of your metals can be synthesized. So in the physical method, that means you are going to have high temperatures, and it calls high time also. And whereas in chemical methods, we are going to use the chemicals like sodium borohydrates, which acts as a reducing agent, and also you need to provide the stabilizing agents for that. Now the third method that we are currently discussing is your biological method, or the green synthesis method, where we are not using any toxic chemicals or any of the stabilizing agents. Okay, so these plant materials, why it can act as a reducing agents? Because of these contents that are present. You have tannins, alkalides, polyphenols, flavonoids, acids, okay, aldehydes that are present, sugar molecules that is present. So that's the reason why you see that these plant extract can act as a reducing agent. Okay, so these the nanoparticle synthesis have this following route, where you have the reduction. First is your reduction reaction, then followed by the growth and nucleation and growth reaction, nucleation and growth stage, and third one is your stabilization. Now, at the end of the stabilization phase, you are able to decide the particular size range of your nanoparticle that you are developing. So these is all the methods that I have described till now is going to have constraints in their own way. Now we have developed a unique single step novel process where we were able to synthesize both the solid and liquid phase nanoparticles, nanoparticles both in solid and liquid phase simultaneously in a single reaction, in a single step. Okay, so we have started with iron. So we have taken a precursor of iron sulfate, and then we have added this mixed this iron precursor solution with the biomass like Mosambi peels. Okay, so Mosambi peels is rich in your citric content, so these citric content act as a potential reducing agent. So we were able to find out that yes, this can act as a reducing agent, and then we have applied it for the synthesis of nanoparticles of iron. But however, when we are doing this XRD analysis, we found that there was no crystalline peak that was confirmed in our XRD analysis. Then we have performed the XPS analysis. There we were able to see that we were found at the binding energies of 707 and approximately at 720 electron volt, which corresponds to the active forms of your active forms of your metallic iron. So this confirms that yes, there was this iron metal that has been embedded into the biomass matrix. Okay, to further confirm that whether this biomass has taken this iron from its aqueous solution or not, we have performed this FESEM EDX, that is field emission scanning electron microscopy with electron dispersive X-ray technique, which can gives you the quantity or the loading of your metals onto the particular surface. Then we have found out the size of your particles that has been synthesized. As we see, we have seen very wide range of particles from 4 to 70 nanometer, which means that you have, as I've already said, iron is very vulnerable to the oxidizing environment. And since we were doing it at the lab conditions, so we found that there was very side range, but still it was very good in the size range of your nanoparticle. So that is, we are able to synthesize the nanoparticles less than 100 nanometers. Now we are ready with our nanoparticles. I think I have shown you these particles also. I hope you guys have already seen this thing part, right?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
What is the full form of NSMR?
Nano size biomass reducer.
M are there, B is not there.
Yes, nano size metal reducer. Nano size metal reducer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is nano size metal reducer. So that we are talking about, right? So nano size metal reducer. Now the metal that we are choosing is iron. Okay, so we have synthesized variety of materials. Okay, so now we have used this zero valent iron for one of the industrial application, that is the reduction of your chromium and then recover of the chromium. Okay, now as you are all aware that chromium is a very heavy metal and which is very toxic, and it is generated in huge quantities in your leather plant treatment. Okay, so while you are tanning your leather, or while you are doing this tanning operations in the process of your leather making, huge quantities of chromium is going to be used, right? So to reduce this chromium, we have synthesized this iron material. Now we found how, or we were trying to explore the potentiality of this synthesized nanovalent zero iron for the reduction of chromium, and simultaneously how we can recover it. Now if you look out at the screen over here at the bottom, so you are able to see that you are able to see some kind of paragraph over here, right? Picture which is in pink color solution and another is in white color solution, right? So on the figure, if you see, I have added this 0.5 gram of nano biocomposite. Okay, and then we have used this indicator to confirm the presence of the chromium 6 ion. So if you look out at 0.5 and 1, so we have this 0.5 and 1 indicates the quantity of the nano biocomposite that we have added to 20 ml of 5000 2000 ppm of your chromium effluent, and we were able to see that with a weight of 1.5 gram of nano biocomposite. Okay, so we were able to completely reduce the chromium 6 hexavalent chromium to trivalent chromium, and this trivalent chromium is going to be insoluble in your water at lower pH. Insoluble in water, so that gets precipitated. You can easily recover the chromium that we are talking about. So for this, we have chosen very high concentration, that is nearly 2500 ppm. We have chosen is 20 ml of stock volume, and then we have chosen the biomaterial of 1 gram of solution. Now, if you see at the things, we were able to quickly reduce the, we have studied this kinetic study about how this chromium concentration is going to be reduced with respect to time. So at 5 minutes, we were able to reduce almost all 62.5%, more than 60, nearly 63% of our solution has been reduced within 5 minutes, and then this reduction is going to be increased with the increase up to 25 minutes. Okay, so we were able to reduce its concentration from 2500 ppm to almost all 650 ppm. Okay, so which is quite, this indicates that the synthesized zero valent iron is going to be very much effective for the reduction of your hexavalent chromium. Now then, keeping the other parameters constant, that is we have fixed, now we want to make sure that we want to reduce the chromium 6 to chromium 3 very quickly, that is for a span of 5 minutes. So I fixed my residence time or the reaction time. Then we have increased the quantity of the biomaterial. So from 0.5 grams that we have seen, we see that from 1 up to 1 with 1.5 grams, we were almost all able to remove this 2500 ppm of chromium 6 concentration for 20 ml. So which means, so you are almost all having 50,000 milligrams of your this chromium 6 solution. Chromium 6 solution has been effectively reduced in 5 minutes with 1.5 gram of our nano biocomposite. Okay, so this shows that the synthesized nanomaterial is quite effective for your chromium reduction. Not only chromium reduction, now the beauty of this reaction, now if you look out at the practical industrial application, or how this chromium 6 is going to be removed and then how it is going to be recovered, is one way is you take it using the membrane separation process, because you have heavy metals, so combined with your biomolecules also there. So the membrane gets abstracts the things, and then it purifies the things. Purified effluent is going to be disposed of. But the question comes is, whatever the residue that is going to be generated over the surface of the membrane, it is very difficult for you to separate the chromium that has been removed. Okay, this forms as a sludge that is usually disposed of by another third party. That forms a toxic sludge that it is going to, that comes under the category of the toxic sludge. Now with the kind of method that we were proposing, so we were able to reduce the chromium simultaneously, and also we were able to recover the chromium simultaneously, because chromium 3 is going to be insoluble in your water that we are talking about. So now this way we were able to reduce and recover the chromium. Now one more thing is, in the industrial applications, usually iron sulfate is added, and the reaction or the reduction reaction is going to happen at acidic range. That is, the higher the acidic one, that is, if you are going to have the reduction is going to happen at nearly 2 to 3 pH. But whereas in our case, we were doing it at normal 7 pH. That means you don't need to add any kind of acids to reduce the things. That means you are not generating the additional toxic effluent stream over there. Okay. Now, not only that, we have then changed it, like, the quantity of the solution. So we have changed it from 500,000 and we have changed the concentration also. We have fixed the volume, we have fixed the residence time, then we have changed the concentration of your chromium. So we were able to see that the percentage reduction, so up to 1500 ppm or up to 2000 ppm, we were able to reduce the concentration of your thing with 1 gram of with 1.5 gram of your solution. Okay, so this conveys that for a very short span of time, the nano biocomposite that we have synthesized, that is the iron nanobas biocomposite, for example, nano size iron biomaterial that we have synthesized, was able to effectively reduce the chromium 6 to chromium 3, and this chromium 3 that is going to be produced is going to be recovered because it is going to get precipitated, it is, since it is not soluble in water. Okay, and moreover, the question that comes is, okay, fine, now you are saying it is going to be a solid one that you are going to be there, right? Is that chromium getting absorbed onto the surface? No. We found that whatever the chromium that has been reduced in Cr3+, that was entirely recovered in its liquid form in the form of a precipitate. That means whatever the reduction after the reaction, you have to take it out and then you have to filter it, and then you can be able to reduce its, you can be able to recover the chromium that has been there in the liquid effluent. Then we have not only done, then we have increased the quantity of the solution by fixing the biomaterial and the concentration. So 20 ml, we were able to get 100% conversion. And then as soon as we increased to 40 ml, so the percentage reduction has been going to be reduced from 100% to 40%. So which indicates that it demands that higher quantity of the material is going to be required if you are going to use higher quantity of your source. Okay. And not only that, we have also seen whether you can use this liquid extract, that is the iron sulfate solution, direct iron sulfate solution that we have formed, that is the liquid form of your nanoparticle that we are talking about, how this is going to be there. It took almost all 6 ml of our solution with a concentration of 0.01 molarity to reduce its concentration from 2500 to 0 ppm. Okay, so it took almost all 6 ml for the same residence time that we have taken. So large quantities of your liquid metal is going to, liquid nanoparticles is going to be there compared to that of your solid nanoparticles. Okay. Then not only that, see, once you have synthesized your material, then you need to be in a position to recover it also, right? So what we have done is, then we have regenerated the material, regenerated this Fe2O3. That means once it gets, chromium gets reduced, iron will get oxidized. Now this oxidized form of iron, once again we have treated with the biomass slurry solution. Then we were able to see that the regeneration was almost all giving you the similar kind of activity. Okay, but not exactly the same thing. But yes, we were able to reduce its concentration significantly to whatever the extent that we are talking about. So at 30 minutes, we were able to almost all get the 75%, whereas it was around 85%. Now this might be because the activity is going to be reduced because of the iron get oxidized, and this oxidized form of iron is going to be stable. So that's the reason why we were not able to get the activity towards the freshly prepared material. But still, you can use it at least for 2 to 3 cycles, 2 cycles, so that you would be able to get the concentration that you are looking out from. Okay. So after that, then we have compared our study with the literature study. Okay. Then we have seen how we were able to whether our process is going to become economically viable or not. So in the literature that we found was they used 50 ppm of solution, whereas we have used very high concentration, that is 2500 ppm. They have used 5 ml, so we have used 20 ml. That means if you look out at the overall concentration that you are talking about, we have started with 50, almost all per liter, right? So it is going to be mg per ml, it is going to 2.5. So multiplied means 50 mg of your this solution. And whereas they have used a biomaterial weight of 25 milligram and we have used 1.5 gram, but this is their actual material that they are talking about, that is the zero valent iron. But ours is a composite material where you have a very less quantity of iron over here. They have applied a pH of 1, as I've already said. So in order to attain the high reductions, so you need to apply some of the acid. That means they are applying the hydrochloric acid over here. But here we don't need to add any external acids that you are talking about. The second thing is they have a high residence times, which is around 60 minutes. But whereas we were able to reduce the chromium 6 effluent at only for 5 minutes. And we see that the percentage reduction that we are going to get, they are getting is only 76% even after 1 hour. But we were able to get almost all 99.99% or 100% removal can be achieved with a very short span of 5 minutes that we are introduced. Now, if I compare this, the same thing for the things, we were able to see for the 25 milligram of the biomaterial that we have synthesized, from their condition, they were able to reduce only 250 microgram. But whereas our case, we were able to reduce almost all 825 microgram. That is almost all 3 times of microgram, 3 times of the chromium concentration. We were able to reduce its size, and they were able to reduce only to 76%. That means they need to go for another kind of treatment process to reduce the chromium or to remove the chromium. But whereas in the process that we have developed, okay, so we were able to reduce the chromium completely, and large quantities, almost all 3 times the quantity that is have been reduced by their process. We were able to be quite superior to whatever that has been synthesized. Okay, so now we were able to confirm ourselves that the synthesized zero valent nano iron, it can potentially reduce chromium 6 at the normal pH, and whatever the reduced pH, reduced chromium 3 plus, that is Cr3 plus, that gets precipitated, that can be precipitated, and we would be able to recover the chromium that is present. So this is one kind of application that we have studied for environmental application, where we have used zero valent iron to reduce the chromium, to reduce and recover the chromium that has been found in the leather plant effluent. Okay, so the second study that we have studied is for the biological application, that is the environmental application that we have studied. Now the second application, or the interesting application that we have studied, is for nano-sized metal reducers. For the same metal reducer that we have used is our Mosambi peels. Then we have synthesized silver, iron, and zinc oxide nanoparticles for this. So now let me show you the things. So just give me a couple of minutes. I just note is not fine, so I just have water.
Just wait for 2 more minutes. I think sir going to have some small break. Then a Kalakutyalu Kirchman Kellintaru. RP Sinha.
Okay, so if you look out at the new materials that we have synthesized, okay, with the same biomass, we have synthesized a variety of nanoparticles. Now here for the biological applications, since we already know that silver is going to be highly active, so we want to synthesize the silver-based nanoparticles both in the liquid phase and the solid phase. And then we have used the similar impregnation method that I have developed and I have explained you in the previous slides. Now, as I have already told you, this peaks which is between 15 for the 2 theta value of 15 degree and 30 degree, 25 degree. So these corresponds to the crystalline one. And you see that there is a sharp intense peak of 111, that is the Miller indices with face-centered cubic structure. We have an intense peak of silver over here. Okay, so from the JCPD analysis with the following file number, we were able to see that we were able to exactly able to match with the silver nanoparticles that we are going to get it. Okay, and from the XRD we found that the synthesized material were able to effectively produce the crystalline form of our silver, which can find an applications in the biological processes. Okay, now to further confirm the oxidation state of our synthesized nanomaterial biocomposite, so we have performed this XPS analysis. This is the full spectrum of the composite curve of our synthesized material, which conveys that you have C, H, and C1s, O, and you have a sulfur that is corresponding to your 3D orbital. So when I'm going to deconvolute these two things, the binding energies of 374 electron volt and the 367 core level of binding energies, we were able to see that this forms the active forms of your metallic silver. Okay, so to further confirm the presence of silver, we have done this FESEM of our samples that has been formed. You see that this is the crystalline, this is the smooth surface, and whereas you see the distorted surface of your treated biomass, which confirms that we have also done the elemental analysis over here. We were able to confirm that silver is going to be present, was found in the EDX analysis. Now here you see that there is a beauty over here. We were able to go for TEM analysis, and we found that the size of our formed nanoparticles was less than 10 nanometer. Okay, the majority of the histogram that we see, it was mostly 4 to 6 nanometer size range of particles are present or found from the TEM analysis, that is your transmission electron microscope analysis. That means we were able to synthesize very narrow size range of your nanoparticles with the Mozambique peels that we have synthesized. Now, yes, we know that it is going to be in an synthesize the silver-based nanobiocomposite. Then we have tested it against the most virulent forms, that is E. coli, strain of E. coli, that is E. coli 0157. So this is a gram-negative bacteria, and another is your Staphylococcus aureus, that is a gram-positive bacteria. And these are being tested for its, our material has been tested against these two viruses, and we want to make sure whether we are able to find out the antibacterial activity or not. So we have found this two quantities, that is zone of inhibition, and we found that the variety, not only this E. coli, but we have also used for variety of strains that we have used. For silver nanoparticle that we have found, the zone of inhibition that you are talking about, what is the zone of inhibition? This is the zone of inhibition. This is your agar medium, and where the silver nanoparticles was tested against the variety of pathogens that we are going to use. And as per the CLSI guidelines, we have put this nanobiocomposite onto this bacterial medium, and we will see that the distance or the diameter through which for which there was no growth of the bacteria. So that is called as a zone of inhibition. And this was the typical zone of inhibition that has been found for a variety of the strains that has been tested. And we found that with the peel extract, that is not going to show any zone of inhibition, which conveys that only the presence of nanoparticle, the activity was only because of the nanomaterials that was present instead of the biocomposite that we are talking about. Now, the second thing is the minimum inhibition concentration, and we found that the minimum inhibition concentration is going to be very much less compared to the other kind of materials that has been synthesized. And we were able to see that as the concentration of as small as 0.3 microgram per ml. So this is very much less compared. If you look out, this is 0.3 microgram of nanobiocomposite. Now, as soon as if you go with the actual iron silver concentration, it will be in the range of nanomillimeters. Okay, nanograms per ml. Okay. Now, not only that, we have also studied this experiment with the batch experiment, where we have studied where we have taken the sludge from one of the waste treatment plant, and we have chosen its microbial load. Okay, these are the microbes that you see over here, and then we taken the samples for every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and then we have seen how this material has shown activity against this material. Okay, so for this we have chosen 0.3 grams of biomaterial has been added to the 9 ml of sludge that we have taken it from one of the waste treatment plant, and we have collected 50 microliter of the sample every time, and we have incubated the plate at 37 degrees centigrade for 24 hours. You see, this was done at 5 minutes. We were able to see that within the less than 5 minutes, we were able to see that the material is free of all of the microbes. Okay, for 10 minutes, you can see the clear picture of our plates, which indicates that all the microbes that were present in the original sample has been eliminated with the presence of the nanobiocomposite that been added to the agar medium. Now, the same thing, see, if you look out, this was the loading that we have found. It was almost all 1.8 into 10 power 6, and we were able to see this was the initial CFL, that is colony forming units. Within 5 minutes, we were able to see there was a continuous decrease in the thing, and with the 30 minutes, we were able to see almost all the stream is completely free of your microbes. Now, the same experiment we have performed with the peel powder also, to make sure that whether the activity that it's going to be, it is because of the peel powder or it is because of the silver nanoparticles or the silver nanobiocomposite that we have synthesized. Now, the same thing we have plotted in the things. We were able to see that within the less than 5 minutes or with the 5 minutes, we were able to reduce the microbial load to almost all zero. Okay, from 2600 ppm to 2600 into 10 power 3. Now, not only that, see, once we know that it has been effective in the batch experiment, now we have conducted the continuous experiment also. Now, the main objective when we have started our experiment is we want to use this material as a packing material, and then see provide this kind of packed bed columns, okay, to some of the rural areas where you have many of these bacterial infections which result in this diarrhea and other kind of diseases. Okay, so for that, so we have taken only 0.5 gram of the nanobiocomposite. We have taken this sludge with 1 ml micropipette, and then we are trying to pass this microbial contaminated effluent through this 0.5 gram of our packing material. So as soon as I do this thing, and then we have collected the sample for every 2 minutes and then incubated it for 24 hours. And we see that even with the continuous experiments also, even with a very small quantity of 0.5 grams, and we are able to see that we are able to get the clear solution or the clear effluent which is free of your microbes. Okay, so these are your 3 samples that we have done it after every 2 minutes. And if you look out at these things, you see that even within the span of 2 minutes, we were able to, for 2 minutes, we were able to get the effluent which is free of your microbes. Now with these nano-sized metal reducers of Mozambique peels, where your silver nanoparticles has been embedded because of very narrow size range, that is in the range of 4 to 6 nanometer. That's where we were able to effectively reduce the microbial load. Okay, now if you see these things, so you are able to see that plot the thing with respect to the residence time. So within less than 2 minutes, you see there was no presence of your any of the microbes or the colony forming units was not present. So which indicates that the synthesized nanobiocomposite of silver was able to effectively reduce the microbial count. So these experiments conveys that this biocomposites can be nanobiocomposites can be applied for your wastewater purification. Now once we know that it is going to be effectively, then we should understand how this nanobiocomposites is able to attack or able to reduce the microbial CFUs, right? So this is your E. coli and this is your Staphylo aureus, and you see that you have a black spots which is going to be there on your bacteria. So this is because of your, whenever you are trying with the concentrations of 1 times of MIC, so you have these kind of phenomena where you see that the bacteria gets damaged or its cell wall is going to be breaked or it is going to form the holes into the things. So what happens is whatever the silver that it is going to be there in the your biocomposite, it comes in contact with the cell wall and it gets diffused through the cell wall, and as soon as it enters into the things, it disrupts the cell by altering the cell functions and thereby eventually led to the death of your cell. Now the same thing you see when you are doing it at the bottom for the Staphylo aureus, you see there is a complete removal of or the eradication of your the bacteria that has been tested. Okay, so this conveys that the synthesized nanobiocomposites were quite effective against the variety of microbes. So then, not only that, once we do this thing, then we have also tested it for the hemolysis experiment. Now the reason why we want to do this hemolysis experiments is, see, if someone is going to take up this or implement this nanobiocomposite as a oral kind of medicine, so whether it is going to interact with your blood RBCs, and if it is going to be interact with the bloods, how you are able to, I mean, to what extent it is going to be effective against your blood. So if you look out at the these things, at the images, at the control, you see we are having these RBCs, then we are dispersing it in DMS form, and without any treatment, this was your actual RBCs count that you have. Then we have treated it almost all 1 times of microbial minimum inhibition concentration, and then we have increased the MICs to almost all 5 times. We see that there was no decrease in the RBC count. So this enables us that the synthesized nanobiocomposites of silver is toxic to the material, toxic to the bacterial colonies, not to the RBCs. So this made us to draw one more statement or to draw one more conclusion that these nanobiocomposites of silver can be implemented as your oral medicines if you are properly tuning its concentration properly. Okay. Now this is one kind of application that we have studied for the biological application, where we have used it for the where we have used these materials for antibacterial activity. Now then we have already then we started, like, why is it only going to be this method is going to work only for silver nanoparticles, or whether it is going to be effective even with the kind of other nanoparticles also. Then we have done this impregnation method for using this zinc acetate as a precursor with a biomass to water ratio of 1:10 at a stirring speed of 250 rpm for a residence time of 24 hours, and we were able to get the zinc loading of 0.29 mole per kg of your biomass that we are going to have. Now, as I have already explained to you in the previous lecture, that at pH less than pH ZPC, you have a zone of positive charge where your hydronium ions and your metal ions interact with, I mean, compete with each other to get absorbed onto the surface, whereas in the high zone of negative total surface charge, your ions gets absorbed and then it forms the precipitates. So that is also not going to be effective. So we need to choose our pH, which is going to be ZPC, where you can effectively use the materials as in its metallic form. Now, to further confirm the presence of our zinc, so we have done FeSEM EDX analysis, and we found that zinc weight percent was around 8.9 and the atomic percent was around 1.89. So to further confirm the presence of our zinc oxide particles, so then we have used this, performed this XRD analysis, that is X-ray spectrophotoscopy, and we found that zinc oxide peaks were confirmed with 34.66 and 57.6 2 theta values. And not only that, we have also seen that zinc existed both in zinc oxide and zinc hydroxide. That means in +2 form. And to further confirm the oxidation state of the zinc, then we have used, performed this XPS analysis. We found that we have this wide scan array of C, H and O materials are almost all observed. And not only that, we have also seen that zinc peaks have been observed at the binding energies of around 1000 kind of thing, right? So when we have deconvolute the composite curve, we see that zinc existed in +2 forms at the binding energies of 1021 and 1044 with the corresponding satellite peaks. Okay, and not only that, with the if you look out at the deconvolution peak of oxygen, which means that the oxygen that is associated with the biomass matrix is not only associated with the biomass, but it also is associated to the zinc at 2 different binding energies, that is 530 electron volt and 531 electron volt. So these two indicates that the zinc is not only in its oxide form but also in its hydroxide form. Further, we have done the TM analysis to find out the size of your nanoparticles that we have synthesized, and we were able to see that zinc oxide nanoparticles, the size range was, you see that it was the size range between 5 to 35 nanometer was found, and with majority of the particles lying somewhere around 12 nanometer, and the average size was also found to be around 12 nanometer. Now we have used the same kind of materials to test its activity against the one of the viruses, that is chikungunya virus, which is you are going with that, which is alpha viruses that we have studied. Okay, so we have performed this cytotoxic test. So if you want to done this cytotoxic test, so what we have done is initially the Vero cells has been seeded onto this 96 well plate culture method at a density of almost all 10,000, and which has been incubated at 37 degrees centigrade over the night. Now, then we have added this biomass concentrations or the nanobiocomposite of this zinc oxide with the following range. So we have used, so as I've already given you the information about, we have discussed about 3 nanoparticles. We have synthesized the silver nanoparticles, we have synthesized the iron nanoparticles, and I have explained you about the zinc oxide nanoparticles. So one primary application that we have seen for our iron nanoparticle was it can be implemented for our chromium effluent. Not only for chromium effluent, we have also tested it for its biological activity. So we were able to get its activity against the virus, but we have tested it against the antibacterial activity. So iron was not able to be very much effective against the antibacterial, I mean against the bacteria. But whereas silver was found to be very much active against the bacteria. Now here we have added different concentrations of our nanobiocomposites of different materials, and you see you have the dark colored one is going to be iron nanoparticles, dashed lines is going to be silver nanoparticles, whereas dashed lines is your zinc oxide nanoparticles. So then we have added at different concentrations of 0.1 to 5 mg per ml, so which indicates that you see that the percentage of cell viability up to 0.5 micrograms we were able to 0.5 mg per ml, the cell viability is almost 90% of the thing. So this confirms that the synthesized nanobiocomposites of iron, silver and zinc oxide can be applied up to a concentrations of 0.5 mg per ml. Okay. However, we have performed our experiments less than 0.2 or around maximum of 0.2 mg per ml to know its activity. So now once we have done this cell viability test, then we have performed this the antiviral assay. So where we have coated this cell virus, that is Vero cells. Okay, so we have seeded this. We have seeded this Vero cells with this chikungunya virus. That means we are making it exposed to the chikungunya virus. Now, as soon as we are exposing this to chikungunya virus, then we have added a known concentration of this biocomposites ranging from 0.05 to 0.1 and 0.2. Now we see that with the increase in the concentrations, the reduction in the viral territory, that is the concentration of the virus that we have been implemented in a particular cell, that has been reduced significantly when we are using the concentration of 0.2 mg per ml. Now, if you see for the silver nanoparticles that we have sued, we have almost all achieved 99% reduction in your viral territory. Both silver and iron was found to be quite effective compared to that of zinc. Now, you see even at the lower concentrations also, zinc was not going to be quite effective, and whereas iron and silver was going to be effective against your antiviral assay that we are done. So not only that, so we have also looked out for this RNA change isolation. See whether it is going to have any change in its RNA. For that, we have done this RT-PCR, quantitative real-time RT-PCR. So where we have harvested the cells by trioxylin reagent assay as per the instructions that has been given by the manufacturer. So what we have done is cDNA synthesis was done using the AccuScript high fidelity first standard cDNA synthesis kit, and then with a fixed amount of RNA. And then once we are done this thing, then we have used this delta double CT method to calculate the gene expression levels of this viral RNA. So once you have done this thing, then we have quantified the things using this fold change, and we will see that with the addition of your nanobiocomposites, the silver, we see that there was very high change in the RNA, which indicates that these particles is going to be quite effective even by reducing the its replication. Okay, so it have a potential effect even on the replication of your viral territory. So at a concentration of 0.2 is going to be quite effective, and moreover silver is going to have the high activity compared to that of iron and zinc. The reason why it is going to be high activity is because of two reasons. So as we have already told you, as I have already given you the information, that iron is, the silver has an activity of, silver has a size range of 4 to 6 nanometer, right? And iron have a size range of 4 to 70 nanometer, but still it existed in the form of zero valent iron. Now the third one that we have is zinc oxide one. Zinc oxide, though the particle size is going to be less, but still it is in +2 oxidation form, that is zinc oxide and zinc hydroxide, right? So now whenever you have these kind of forms, so one way of reduction or one way of showing the activity of a nanomaterial is, one is it diffuses through the cell membrane, or it interacts with the cell, or it interacts with the nuclei, and then it alters the function of the nuclei and thereby leads to the development. Now to happen these things, so it has to diffuse through the nuclei, right? So through the mediums. Now as the size range is going to be less, the silver has having the high diffusivity, and thereby it reaches the nuclei very quickly, and it was able to reduce both in case of bacteria and also in case of virus. Now if you look out at the iron doesn't have any activity because of its size range, and it is not quite effective, even it was not able to pass to the things of the cell wall for kinds of bacteria. But whereas for viral, because of its zero valent activity, it was able to produce the free radicals in the environment, and then these free radicals interact with the nuclei of our virus, and then it was able to disrupt or the function of the viral of the virus that is going to be encountered. Now, coming to the zinc oxide, since though it is in +2 oxidation state, but because of its size range, it enters into your, or it comes in contact with the nuclei and thereby disrupt. Now, if you look out at the overall picture of our nano biocomposite, so it have mainly two functions. One is to effectively synthesize the narrow size range of your nanoparticles, and second is its zero valence state. Which means that is active nanometals. In case of both iron and silver, we were able to synthesize the active nanoforms, but whereas in the zinc, because of its high reduction potential, it was not able to get reduced. We were able to produce only the zinc oxide nanoparticles. Now, this picture that if you are going to see, this is nothing but indirect immunofluorescence assay, where we have seen whether the applied nanoparticles were able to reduce the viral titri or not. So this viro cells has been seeded onto 24 well plate, and then they were being treated with different concentration of the nanoparticles that were being infected with chikungunya virus. So whatever the virus that you see over here, this is your DAPI staining that you have found, and this is your virus control. That means you have been infected, the cells has been infected with the virus. And as soon as you are treating this virus with the nanobiocomposite of silver, you see that the green color concentration has been significantly reduced compared to that of its original virus controlled one. Now, the same thing, if you are doing it in the presence of iron nanoparticles, the concentration or the intensity of the fluorescence of your virus cells has been decreased. And even with the zinc oxide nanoparticles also, we were able to see there was, in comparison with the virus control, it was the fluorescence is going to be decreased. Now, we have further reconfirmed it whether the activity is only because of the materials that is present, or with the nanobiomaterial that is, or with the biomass that is there. So we have tested against with the citrus species also, but however, we were not able to see that there was no reduction in the intensity of your fluorescence that we have seen for the viral compounds. Now, this conveys that whatever the nanobiocomposite that we are synthesizing in the presence using the biomass. Now, the biomass can act as a potential reducing agent, which can encapsulate the nanoparticles into its, and these can be applied in variety of your biological and environmental applications. Okay, so with this, I'm going to stop over here. So I would just like to show you one more thing also. So if you look out, I hope you guys are able to see the bottle with some kind of green solution, right? Light green solution. I hope you guys are able to see it.
Yes, sir.
This is the nano-based liquid sanitizer solution that we have developed in our lab. This is the silver-based one. This is been quite effective against your variety of microbes, like I have mentioned it in our in the study. So we have already got certified this product from the NABL, National Accredited Board Lab 1, and we are going to get this product into the market soon. Maybe in the couple of months, we were able to synthesize this. I mean, we are able to get this product as a effective, nanoparticle based sanitizers for variety of surface. Not only it can be applied to the hands, it can be applied to the surface, metallic surfaces, glass surface, plastic surface, even on the fruits also. Okay, so this we have developed in our lab, and then we are trying to get it this product into the market maybe soon in the next couple of years. Now, the only problem that you have with these kind of commercial sanitizers that you use is, say these are alcohol based ones, and you see it also have some kind of chemical ingredients. But the sanitizer that we have developed is purely biological one. It doesn't require any kind of, it doesn't use any kind of chemicals. So you can directly use it on any of your surfaces, and also even for your hands also. So that's where we are superior with the conventions, and moreover, so it doesn't require any of your sophisticated equipment for the synthesis of anything. Now, if you look out at these things, you require the isopropyl alcohol, you require some carbopol, glycerin, trimethylamine, some perfume. Okay, so everything is been present, but here you don't require, you just require a biomass. You take the silver nanoparticle over here, you are synthesizing this nanocomposite in the liquid phase, and then we are trying to use it as a sanitizer. Now I hope I have imparted you some kind of knowledge for the nanoparticle synthesis. So now the floor is open for your questions. I would be happy to take questions from you all.
I request the participants to post the questions to sir.
Yeah. Yes, I would be happy to take the questions from anyone. See, even if you don't have any, you can write to me at any point of time regarding any of the topic that I have shared with you. So I would be more happy to discuss with you people more in detail, and we can see how we can proceed together in the next coming years. I would be more happy to collaborate with you all.
Okay, sir. By this, we end the session. Thanks, Mohan Reddy Garu, once again for contributing for this novel materials for industrial applications course on the last day. Thank you once again to you, sir.
Okay,
And
thank
we
you all.
wish you a happy Dasara festival.
Yeah.
Are you visiting, sir, for this Dasara festival to?
No, I won't be able to make for this festival, but I will be coming during the semester break. That
Okay.
is in the December. I will be giving. I will inform you. Then I think we can meet in person also, because we are
Okay.
from the same place. We will be
Okay,
more
sir.
happy
Yes,
to
sir.
meet.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I once again thank all the participants for giving me this opportunity, and also for being a very nice audience. I hope that I have imparted the knowledge for the synthesis of nanoparticles using the biological route. I hope you have gained some knowledge, and hope you can start doing some kind of research that would be implemented for your environmental applications or for biological applications. So thank you. I once again thank very much to all, and once again thanks especially to Damodar, Dr.
Thank you,
Damodar
sir.
Reddy, for
Thank you.
giving me this opportunity to
Thank
share
you a
my
lot, sir.
research work to the research community.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
And a small appeal to the participants. The next session and the last session will be going to be started by 2:15 p.m. Okay, and we will have exactly 1 hour break. So we will meet during that time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Damodar.